Doctors have been telling us for years to eat more omega-3 for our hearts, our memory, and our joints. And most of us nod along and think of one thing: fish, salmon, sardines, maybe a fish oil pill with breakfast. But here is something almost nobody tells you. There are 20 plants, many of them sitting in your own kitchen, growing in your own garden, or waiting quietly in the produce aisle, that carry this same essential fat. Some of them you already eat every week without knowing what they are doing for you. And one, plant number 4 on our list today, is a weed most people spend their whole summer pulling out of their garden and throwing away, even though it holds more heart-healthy omega-3 than any leafy green ever tested in a laboratory. If you have ever wanted a gentler, plant-based way to support your heart and your brain as you get older, stay with me, because this is going to change how you look at your kitchen and your backyard for good. Before we go any further, welcome back to Seniors Wellness Roots. If this is your first time here, we make it our mission every week to bring you clear, honest, well-researched information about eating well and living well in the years that matter most. And if that sounds like something you want more of, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a video. It genuinely helps our little community grow, and it costs you nothing but a second of your time. One honest note before we begin, because we always want to be straight with you here. Most of the omega-3 found in plants comes in a form called alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Your body can use ALA on its own, and a good amount of research links it to heart health, brain health, and healthy inflammation levels, but it is chemically different from the long-chain marine omega-3s, EPA, and DHA, found in fatty fish. Your body converts a small portion of ALA into those forms, but the conversion is modest, generally somewhere in the range of 5 to 15% for EPA, and considerably less for DHA. That does not make ALA any less worth eating. It simply means it plays a different, complementary role alongside fish or algae-based sources, rather than replacing them outright. So think of everything on this list today as a wonderful addition to a balanced plate, not a replacement for anything your own doctor has recommended for you, especially if you have been told to manage cholesterol, blood pressure, or a heart condition. With that out of the way, let's get into our 20 plants, counting up from the everyday plants already sitting in your pantry to a few genuinely surprising ones you may never have heard of before today. 1. Flaxseed. If there is one plant that started the modern conversation about plant-based omega-3, it is this one. A single tablespoon of ground flaxseed carries around 2 grams of alpha-linolenic acid, more than many people get from their entire day of eating. Flax has a genuinely old story behind it. Archaeologists have found flax fibers in a cave in the country of Georgia, dating back roughly 30,000 years, used by prehistoric people to make cord and rope, long before anyone thought to farm it. Actual cultivation of flax as a food and fiber crop began later, somewhere between 8 and 11,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, which still makes it one of the very first crops humans ever grew on purpose. The ancient Egyptians wove its fibers into fine linen and ate its seeds for nourishment, and later cultures across Europe kept the tradition alive in bread and porridge. Here is the part most people miss. Whole flax seeds are so tough that they often pass through the body undigested, taking their omega-3 with them. Buy it whole, then grind small batches yourself in a coffee grinder and store it in the refrigerator in a sealed jar, since those delicate oils turn rancid quickly once they meet air and light. A spoonful of ground flax also brings along a modest amount of fiber and plant compounds called lignans, which some research has connected to healthy aging, though that area of study is still developing. Stir a spoonful into oatmeal, yogurt, or a smoothie, and you have quietly added one of the richest plant sources of omega-3 on Earth to your morning, without changing much else about how you already eat. 2. Walnuts. Walnuts are the only tree nut that qualifies as a genuinely excellent source of plant omega-3, and a small 1-ounce handful, about a quarter cup, gives you roughly 2.5 grams of alpha-linolenic acid. Old world healers noticed that a shelled walnut resembles a tiny brain and built folklore around it. But the real science here has nothing to do with appearances and everything to do with fat composition. For generations, walnuts were stored through long winters as a dense, portable source of nourishment that kept well in a cool cellar. That same richness in healthy oils means walnuts can turn rancid faster than most nuts. So buy them as fresh as you can find them, keep them sealed in the refrigerator, and taste one before trusting a whole bag. A bitter, sharp taste means it is time to toss them. A handful of walnuts also brings along polyphenols, plant compounds with antioxidant properties, and a bit of fiber and magnesium, which is part of why researchers studying heart health so often include walnuts on their lists of foods worth eating regularly. They are easy to fold into a daily routine too, whether that is a few tossed into a salad, chopped over yogurt, or simply eaten plain as an afternoon snack. 3. Chia seeds. Long before chia showed up in trendy smoothie bowls, it was a staple of the Aztec and Maya peoples of Central America, and its name is believed to come from a word meaning strength. Just 1 ounce, about 2 tablespoons, delivers more than 5 grams of alpha-linolenic acid, making it one of the most concentrated plant sources of omega-3 you can eat. Chia seeds can absorb many times their weight in liquid, swelling into a soft gel that makes them easy on the digestion, which is especially useful if you find whole flaxseed a bit rough. Stir 2 tablespoons into water, milk, or juice. Let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes, and you have a simple pudding you can flavor with cinnamon or fruit. Because chia forms that gel so readily, it is also a gentle way to add fiber to your day if you find that digestion has become a bit slower with age, though it is always worth introducing any new fiber source gradually and with plenty of water. The 4. Purslane. Here is the one I promised you at the start. Purslane is a low, fleshy, reddish-stemmed plant that grows as what most gardeners consider a stubborn weed, and it is, without exaggeration, the richest source of omega-3 ever measured in a leafy vegetable. Research first published by Dr. Artemis Simopoulos in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition found purslane contains roughly 300 to 400 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid per 100 grams of fresh leaves, 5 to 7 times more than spinach. Even more remarkable, purslane is one of the only land plants ever found to contain trace amounts of EPA, the long-chain omega-3, usually found only in fish and algae. People across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and Mexico have eaten it for thousands of years, prized for its crisp, lemony bite in salads. One gentle caution: purslane contains natural oxalates, so if you have a history of kidney stones, enjoy it in moderation and mention it to your doctor. And always be completely certain of your identification before eating anything you find growing wild, since a few toxic lookalikes exist. If you would rather not forage, purslane is increasingly available at farmers markets and specialty grocers, and it grows easily from seed if you would like a small patch of your own. Beyond its omega-3, it is also a good source of vitamin E and potassium, making it one of the most nutritionally dense greens you can put on a plate, weed or not. 5. Avocado. The avocado is famous for its healthy fats, and while its amount of alpha-linolenic acid is modest compared to seeds like flax or chia, it earns its place on this list for a different reason. Those rich fats help your body absorb the fat-soluble nutrients in the other plants around it, meaning a purslane salad with a few slices of avocado on top does more for you together than either would alone. Avocados have been cultivated in Mexico and Central America for thousands of years, valued deeply enough that some ancient peoples buried them alongside their dead. Think of avocado less as the star of your omega-3 plate and more as the ingredient that helps everything else work harder for you. 6. Hemp seeds. Let's clear up any confusion right away. Hemp seeds, often sold as hemp hearts, are a food crop with no effect on the mind whatsoever. What they do offer is an unusually well-balanced fat profile. 3 tablespoons provide roughly 3 grams of alpha-linolenic acid, along with complete plant protein and a generous dose of magnesium. Hemp's ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fats is considered close to ideal by many nutrition researchers, which is genuinely rare among plant foods. For centuries, hemp was a workhorse crop, feeding families while its strong fibers became rope and cloth. Today, it is finding its way back into kitchens, sprinkled over yogurt, blended into homemade milk, or stirred into a bowl of morning oats. Because hemp hearts have a mild, nutty flavor and a soft texture, they are one of the easiest omega-3 foods on this list to add without changing how a dish tastes, which makes them a good starting point if you are new to any of this. 7. Spinach. Spinach sits on nearly every grocery shelf in the country, and hardly anyone thinks of it as an omega-3 food, but it does carry a small, genuine amount, roughly 50 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid per 100 grams. On its own, that number looks modest, but we tend to eat spinach in generous handfuls, wilted into dishes or blended into smoothies, so it adds up over a week of meals. Spinach traveled from ancient Persia across the known world, prized for its iron-rich leaves. Eat it raw or only lightly cooked to help protect its more delicate fats. 8. Kale. Kale became famous for its vitamins and fiber, and its omega-3 content rarely gets a mention, but a cup of cooked kale does contain a small, real amount of alpha-linolenic acid. Kale is actually one of the oldest cultivated greens in human history, feeding people across Europe for more than 2,000 years, long before the familiar roundhead cabbage was even developed. It grows sweeter after a hard frost, which made it a genuine lifeline in old winter gardens. A few plants in a backyard bed can keep you in fresh greens through much of the colder months, and it tolerates light frost far better than most vegetables, which makes it a forgiving choice for gardeners who want something low maintenance. Beyond its small contribution of omega-3, kale is well known for vitamin K and vitamin C, and a simple massage with a little olive oil and lemon juice can soften raw kale enough to make a genuinely pleasant salad. 9. Brussels sprouts. These small cabbages get an unfair reputation at the dinner table, largely because for generations they were boiled into a soft, sulfurous mush. Roasted until crisp and caramelized, they reveal both real flavor and real nourishment, including about 170 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid per 100 grams cooked. Because we eat vegetables in cups rather than tablespoons, that number contributes meaningfully to a full meal. Brussels sprouts were cultivated in Northern Europe for centuries, specifically because they could survive cold weather when little else would grow. 10. Mustard greens. Mustard greens carry deep roots in traditional Southern cooking, and they hold a respectable amount of alpha-linolenic acid for a leafy green, more than many of the milder greens on this list. The plant has been grown across Asia, Europe, and Africa for thousands of years, valued as both an everyday food and a folk remedy. It grows quickly, thrives in cool weather, and brings a bold, peppery flavor that home cooks have been simmering low and slow for generations. 11. Pumpkin seeds. Every autumn, millions of pumpkin seeds get scraped out and thrown in the trash. That is a genuine waste, since pepitas carry a worthwhile amount of plant omega-3 alongside magnesium, zinc, and quality protein. One honest note, pumpkin seeds actually carry more omega-6 than omega-3, so they work best as part of a varied diet rather than as your main omega-3 source. Native peoples of the Americas cultivated pumpkins for thousands of years and wasted none of the plant, roasting and grinding the seeds for the lean winter months. Rinse them, toss with a little oil and salt, and roast until golden at around 350 degrees for 20 minutes, stirring once halfway through. Beyond omega-3, pumpkin seeds are one of the better plant sources of magnesium, a mineral many older adults fall short on, and one that plays a role in muscle function and sleep quality. 12. Kidney beans. Beans are famous for protein and fiber, but almost nobody thinks of them as a source of healthy fat. Kidney beans and their cousins, navy beans, contain small amounts of alpha-linolenic acid, modest on their own, but beans are eaten often and in real quantity across the Americas, the Mediterranean, and beyond. A food eaten regularly and in generous portions adds up in ways an occasional delicacy simply cannot. Simmered low and slow, they have fed families through hard times for centuries. 13. Soybeans and edamame. Most people picture soybeans as animal feed, or a hidden ingredient in processed food, never as an omega-3 source. But a cup of cooked edamame, the young green soybean, provides around 1/3 of a gram of alpha-linolenic acid, alongside a full serving of complete plant protein. Soybeans have been cultivated in East Asia for well over 3,000 years, and were once counted among the 5 sacred grains of ancient China. Whole soy foods, like edamame, tofu, and tempeh, bring fiber and minerals along with their fat, which is easy to forget in a world of heavily processed soy products. Steamed edamame in the pod makes a satisfying snack on its own, with just a pinch of salt. And tofu takes on the flavor of whatever it is cooked with, which makes it an easy, gentle way to work more plant protein and omega-3 into a week of meals without a dramatic change to your usual cooking. 14. Canola oil. The bright yellow fields you may have driven past without a second thought belong to the canola plant, a relative of cabbage refined from rapeseed by Canadian plant breeders in the 1970s. A single tablespoon of canola oil provides well over a gram of alpha-linolenic acid, and because it is mild and inexpensive, it slips into everyday cooking almost unnoticed. Choose a cold-pressed version when you can, and avoid overheating it, since high heat damages these delicate fats. 15. Camelina. Camelina, sometimes called false flax or gold of pleasure, fed people across Europe as far back as the Bronze Age before industrial agriculture pushed it aside. Its pressed oil is rich in alpha-linolenic acid, often 35 to 45% of its fat content. And unlike more delicate flax oil, camelina oil is naturally resistant to rancidity, which made it valuable to farmers with no refrigeration. Today, sustainable farmers are bringing it back because it thrives in poor soil with very little water. 16. Perilla. Perilla, sometimes called shiso, is a fragrant leafy herb in the mint family, treasured for centuries in Korean, Japanese, and Chinese cooking, but rarely tasted in the West. Its seed oil contains one of the highest concentrations of alpha-linolenic acid of any plant oil studied, often between 54 and 64%. In Korea, the broad leaves wrap grilled foods, while the roasted seeds are ground into savory sauces. It never crossed the ocean into everyday American gardens the way other herbs did, but it grows easily in American soil for anyone willing to plant it. Now, before we get into the final stretch of this list, I want to ask you something. Of the plants we have covered so far, which one genuinely surprised you? Was it the weed in plant 4 or the oil in plant 16 you had never heard of? Type your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and it genuinely helps me know what to dig into for future videos. Now, let's finish strong with 4 plants that most people have truly never encountered. 17. Echium. Echium, sometimes called viper's bugloss, is a wild flower with striking blue and purple blooms that honeybees love. Its seed oil contains a form of omega-3 that early research suggests the body may convert somewhat more readily than the ALA found in most other plants, though this remains an active area of study rather than a settled fact. For centuries it grew wild across Europe, admired mostly for its beauty, and only in recent years have researchers begun studying its oil in any depth. 18. Sacha inchi. Deep in the Amazon rainforest grows a climbing vine that produces star-shaped seed pods, cultivated by indigenous Peruvian communities for generations. Roasted, the seeds taste something like a cross between a peanut and an almond, and they are exceptionally high in alpha-linolenic acid, with a single serving offering close to 3 times what you would get from the same amount of walnuts. They also carry plenty of plant protein and vitamin E, which helps protect those oils from spoiling. Once known only in the villages that grew it, sacha inchi is now showing up as a roasted snack in health food shops and, increasingly, as a pressed oil sold for drizzling over finished dishes rather than cooking, since heat can damage its delicate fats. If you enjoy trying new foods, it is a pleasant, easy way to add variety to your snack drawer. 19. Seaweed and algae. Here is a plant that changes the whole story we have been telling. Fish do not make their own omega-3. They get it by eating algae, the true original source of the long-chain marine omega-3s that fish so often get the credit for. Certain edible seaweeds and algae carry those same marine-type omega-3s directly, without a fish in between. Coastal peoples in Japan, Korea, Wales, and Ireland have harvested seaweed for centuries, weaving it into soups, breads, and daily meals. Algae-based supplements are now one of the few fully plant-based ways to get EPA and DHA directly, which can be especially useful for anyone who avoids fish altogether, whether for taste, dietary preference, or concerns about mercury and other contaminants sometimes found in ocean fish. Dried seaweed like nori, kombu, and wakame can also be worked into everyday cooking, torn into soups, simmered into broths, or simply enjoyed as a light, crisp snack. And it is one of the few plant foods that brings a genuine taste of the ocean without the ocean itself. 20. Chlorella and spirulina. We close with 2 of the smallest plants on this entire list, microscopic algae, sold as deep green powders. Alongside generous amounts of protein, iron, and antioxidants, both contain omega-3 fatty acids from the same marine family that fish quietly borrow from the sea. Traditional communities near certain lakes in Africa and Central America harvested spirulina from the water and dried it into cakes many centuries ago. As with any supplement, choose a trusted, tested source, since algae absorb whatever is in the water around them, and speak with your doctor before adding a new supplement to your routine, especially if you take blood thinners or other medications. A small spoonful stirred into a morning smoothie is all it takes. If all 20 of these feel like a lot to take in at once, here is the simplest way to think about it. You do not need all 20 plants in your kitchen this week. Pick 1 or 2 that sound appealing, maybe ground flax in your morning oatmeal and a handful of walnuts in the afternoon, and let that become a habit before you add anything else. If you enjoy gardening, consider letting a purslane plant grow undisturbed in a corner bed, or tucking a few kale or mustard green starts into a raised bed this season. And if you take blood-thinning medication or manage a chronic health condition, it is always worth a quick conversation with your doctor or pharmacist before making any significant change to your diet, simply so everything you are doing works together rather than against each other. Plant-based omega-3 is not about doing everything at once. It is about steady, gentle additions that compound over months and years, which, if you think about it, describes healthy aging pretty well in general. So there you have it, 20 plants, from the flaxseed sitting in your pantry to the weed growing quietly between your tomato plants, all carrying some form of this essential fat we have been told for years belongs only to fish. None of these plants need to replace what your doctor has already recommended for you, but they offer a gentle, accessible way to round out a heart-healthy, brain-healthy plate, especially if fish is not something you eat often or enjoy. Start small. Add a spoonful of ground flax to your oatmeal tomorrow morning, or let a purslane plant grow in the corner of your garden instead of pulling it. Small, steady changes, repeated over months and years, are almost always the ones that actually last, and they tend to matter far more for long-term wellness than any single dramatic change ever could. We covered a lot of ground today, from ancient crops like flax and camelina that fed entire civilizations, to a humble backyard weed that outperforms nearly every leafy green ever tested, to microscopic algae drifting quietly at the bottom of the ocean, the true original source of the omega-3 story we so often credit to fish alone. Whichever of these plants finds its way onto your plate first, know that you are joining a very long line of people, going back thousands of years, who understood something simple, that real nourishment is often growing closer to home than we think. If this video helped you look at your kitchen a little differently, do me a favor and tap that like button. It helps this video reach other people who could use it. And if you have not subscribed to Seniors Wellness Roots yet, now is a perfect time. We post a new video every week, always grounded in real research, always written with you in mind. Ring the bell so you never miss one. Tell me in the comments which of these 20 plants you are going to try first. I would love to know. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I will see you in the next video.